Hey guys, it's Tim here. We are live and broadcasting on fiber out of Dallas, Texas. And you can tell there by a little airplane traffic there. I'm running this on a laptop and we're doing 720p tonight. And I'm kind of running blind because I've only got one monitor here, and you can kind of see what's going on here on my desktop. So just bear with me. I think next time I do this, I'm going to carry along a monitor with me because I'm kind of picking my way through all this. But we're going to try to get through this webcast the best we can. I'm trying to strive for consistency to always be here every evening. Otherwise, if you can't count on the live cast being around, then, why check it out? So I think that's pretty important there. So let's get started. And tomorrow evening, we are going to be back to the same format, so things will be back to normal here. Things were pretty busy yesterday, and that's why I couldn't get on. It was actually my birthday yesterday, so you can imagine things were pretty hectic. So here's the picture we have across the southern U.S. You can see this inverted trough here. By inverted trough, we're talking about higher pressure values as you go north, or as you go northwest, because that's different from the usual trough that you see, such as with lee-side troughs over Colorado, where the trough kind of extends north-south and the lower pressures are to the north. So this inverted trough here marks kind of a front sneaking into the Oklahoma-Arkansas area. So there it is right there, and behind that, some showers and thunderstorms. And further south, you can see this one area here in West Texas. This is not frontal. Maybe I can show you why. Let me switch over to the surface map. Let's see. To get the surface plots up, I'm going to have to do this. And you can see that the air mass north of this area of showers is fairly warm. We have lots of lower 80s. Dew points are in the mid-60s. So that doesn't really sound like polar air coming southward until you get up in this area in Kansas. So this looks like it's mostly being driven by an outflow boundary, and we can kind of see that on the surface plots in this area right here. I should use my mouse instead of the trackpad. How about that? There we go. Smoother lines. A little jaggies there, but that's okay. But there you go. You can see north of that line right there, we have northwest winds, and south of that, there's the inflow coming in from the Gulf of Mexico. Let me switch over to the chat page, and I'll make sure we don't have the audio broken. I appreciate the birthday wishes. Thank you. That little boundary in West Texas, we can see that actually on the radar chart. Look at that coming down. This is the Midland radar. So that's Midland right there, and you can see that boundary just shoving its way southward about, it looks probably about 20-25 miles an hour. And you can see how it triggers thunderstorms as it gets into this moist air mass just ahead of it. Let me see if I can switch over to San Angelo. Most of these storms look to be on the non-severe side, and we've talked about this in past weathercasts. When we see like the supercell type V structures, when we see high reflectivities, especially on the inflow side of the precipitation core, that tells us that we're looking at probably severe weather like severe multicell, possibly a supercell, that kind of thing. We don't have that here. We just kind of see this disorganized mess of showers working its way southward through the Concho Valley. So not much really as far as any concern on these. You probably just give you some really beneficial rain as that drives southward. So here's the watches and warnings we have. Further up the front in Missouri, we can see there's some flash flood warnings around the Springfield area out to Branson. And then in West Texas, that area we just looked at, looks like a severe thunderstorm watch. I think that's what that pink is. But I wouldn't expect tornadoes out of that. All right, just take a quick look at NHC. Things look pretty inactive We've got a couple of tropical storms here. We have Julia about to come onto the Carolinas coast, and Carl way out near the Cape Verde Islands. Now, one thing you can see here is that our hurricane season is a little bit on the active side, because normally we see about 10 named storms every year. So we've got Carl out here, that's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, that's going to be the 11th storm right there. And we've still got 1 or 2 more months of tropical weather season to go. So this could, we could see some storms running up to the M's and O's. That's certainly possible. And we'll probably watch the next month or for probably, I think probably on one of these weathercasts in the next few weeks, we're going to probably see a hurricane out in the Caribbean or Gulf of Mexico, because it's that time of year. And when we do that, I'm going to try to bring up all the radar we got out there and all the observations, and we'll try to check that out in detail, and I'll give you a little bit of a refresher on tropical weather forecasting. So let's go into our forecast here. We're doing the usual precipitable water and pressure, and the purple corresponds to your higher precipitable water values, so 1.25 inch basically. So let me get this all set up so we can see the hour bar on the top, and let's see here, run this back to 0 hours. So this is the picture we're looking at right now. Looks like a lot of moisture across the southern U.S., all the way up into the Midwest around Lake Superior and what do I want to say? Lake Illinois. That's not right. I don't know. Lake Michigan. There we go. Yeah. So just north of Chicago, right there. So pretty good moisture feed up there, and looking for that little surge of cold air moving south. I don't really see that too well, so we know that this is a pretty weak front. See those weak 5 to 10 knot winds there in Kansas? That's a very weak push of cold air. Alright, so looks like north of that, not much in the way of any more polar air coming down, because we have lee side troughing developing in Alberta and up into the Northwest Territories. So that tells us we don't have a polar air mass waiting up in the northern Rockies up into Canada. We've got basically some storm systems moving through there, and that's not conducive to cold air mass formation, because for that we really need a good period of radiational cooling overnight, and we don't have that when we've got storm systems sweeping through there and a wet weather pattern, that kind of thing. So let's see, going through the rest of the weekend, looks like a little bit of a meso high over southwestern Missouri. See right there, that's probably, I don't know, that may be due to thunderstorm activity in that area, probably driving a little outflow boundary southward, but we're still continuing to tap moisture up from the Gulf of Mexico. So we run that forward. Looks like we stay under southerly flow here in Texas. We're getting up to Wednesday and Thursday, but you notice it starts drying out. So we're starting to bring in green values. Even though the surface winds are showing southerly here, we are managing to slip in some easterly flow here. This is recycled polar air coming up from the Midwest. So that's going to start bringing the humidities down, start dropping the dew points into the 60s and maybe a few upper 50s. And so by late next week, things should be, I don't know, probably still warm, but probably less of that muggy weather that we're all getting tired of. So let's see, getting into next weekend, we've got a new fresh polar high up here in Manitoba. So you can see it driving a lot of cold air into the Dakotas and Minnesota, and the leading edge of that front would be about right here through around Des Moines to north of Denver and to the mountain passes of western Montana. So we can expect that to probably sink southward a little bit, but nope, we've got a new low pressure system forming out in Colorado. So when that happens, that tends to stall the southward advance of those air masses. So you can see that system coming together, and let's see, looks like that actually moves northwest into Manitoba. So that'll put a choke on the cold air coming down south, it looks like. And we're going to stay probably be dominated by tropical air coming up from the Gulf for the next week and a half, which is kind of a bummer because I really enjoy cold air and we really need a break from the summer weather, but we are going to have to be patient and wait till probably the first week of October for that kind of thing. And just a quick look at the upper air patterns. This is the GFS 250 millibar chart. This is up at 34,000 feet. We start out with a polar front jet. Let me change the color here. There we go. Polar front jet onto the British Columbia coast, another segment across the Hudson Bay region. Looks like maybe a subtropical jet down around Tucson to Texas. So it kind of looks like a split flow pattern. And not much change. It looks like this will mainly affect the northern half of the U.S. And then towards the end of the period, we start getting some long wave troughing out on the west coast. You see that right there, big old trough, and also a large ridge forming up in Alaska. So this is the pattern we look for when we're talking about polar air starting to form, and that's kind of a setup for a cold air outbreak. But it looks like that ridge kind of keeps riding northward, and it looks like troughing kind of broadens out in the Pacific here. And let's see here, finally it kicks eastward. Now you can see the center of the long wave trough is over the central U.S. right there. So this is probably when things are going to be on the cool side here in the central U.S. and the Midwest, because this large, broad, long wave troughing, this is a signal that there's going to be a lot of polar air. Maybe not very cold, but it will be probably deep and rather cool to mild, covering a lot of this area here. And that's going to be around September 30th right there, so that'll be something to look forward to here. And that's about all I got for tonight. This is kind of experimental. I'm going to try to, when I do these these car trips, I'm going to try to take the studio with me. And this is the first time I've actually used it here. Well, back last summer we did do a very basic forecast thing, but that was not live, that was recorded. So it looks like everything's working pretty well. Let me check the chat and make sure there's no complaints, and looks good. I think everybody's fat and happy here. So anyway, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you tomorrow night at the usual time, 8 o'clock, and hopefully we have some more stuff to look at. Thank you. We'll see you then.